All right, guys, we are live. I wish I had a name for this show. I don't even know what the hell it is. It's just a bunch of guys talking about paranormal stuff and their experiences at this point. But today we have Stacy Brown Jr., my buddy here, and then also Carl Johnson and James Annitto. Is that how you pronounce your name? Annitto, man, I always just butcher everybody's names. I'm just so bad at that. But yeah, I wanted to get all of us together and talk about this crazy trip that Stacy and I just had, and kind of how it affected him, man, because we are thinking that he has the signs, well, at least I'm thinking that he has the signs of someone who is, dare I say, possessed. But I wanted to go over what happened, man, and get you guys' your take on it, is basically what's going on.
Well, what scenarios do we have? What answers? It could be possibly he had a psychological breakdown, albeit a temporary one, or he was genuinely possessed, or something in between.
Yeah. So I feel like we need to preface this a little bit and tell folks what we were doing and kind of what all went down right before this. And I know that Carl and James, you guys really don't even know that much about what we did. So make a long story short, Stacy and I decided to go on this paranormal journey, man. We hit up, I think, 7 locations, Stacy, in like 5 days.
6 days. 7 and 6.
Seven locations in 6 days. It was absolutely insane, man. It was absolutely crazy. But during that time, it started off really good. When you say, man, like it was cool.
And everything was. I was so happy. Like, this is cool to me. I'm not really that much of a paranormal guy. Matter of fact, one of the first paranormal things I ever did was with Carl with the werewolf hunt. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not really a paranormal dude. You know what I mean?
That swung it into the next level of, paranormal, the arcane, the strange, the inexplicable.
Right. So
yeah, we started off, man, just having a great time. We ended up going out to the Freetown Forest, had some really weird stuff happen there, had something like run around us, man. It was legit. And then after that, we went to the Conjuring House. Of course, we had an awesome time at the Conjuring House. We didn't get anything really like life-changing or anything there, but we had some cool interactions on the ghost box, spirit box. You remember that?
Yeah, man. It was just you would think the Conjuring House was gonna like be wow, you know what I mean? Something happened, but it just didn't, but it was really cool. It had a good feeling there. It didn't feel like it was, a bad place to be. I didn't feel not safe.
Yeah. Do you guys feel the same way there at the Conjuring House? You've been there a bunch of times.
To simplify, because I've been there a lot less than Carl has. It was 47 years ago. But no, I don't feel like it's evil. I feel like it's a welcoming home, but I definitely feel like there's an atmospheric change when you walk in the house that there could be something there, definitely. But sometimes it's not on command,
It can take you 2 to 5 minutes to get that eerie feeling that something's watching you, and they have the DVR system set up all over the house, which you had something to do with, Bill, engineering that, but you do feel as if something's there with you. I think the house has accrued a personality of its own, built in 1736, and I think it likes people or doesn't. Some people it will embrace, other people it will spit out, and they don't feel welcome there, and they want to leave. Other people are, no, I'd stay the night here.
Right.
It affects people so differently and so profoundly that I think it does have that personality. It recognizes people. Likes them, it doesn't.
But there's a difference between being like a volition of being malevolent or benevolent, and then there's something evil.
I've never felt malevolence there. I have felt eerie.
Yeah, definitely.
To differentiate a little bit.
Right. I wanted to bring up the Conjuring House mainly to talk about the fact that people believe that it has a demonic presence there. Do you guys feel like there's anything there like that?
No, it's an interpretation. If you feel it's sinister, you definitely feel it's palpable and watching you. That's very easy to interpret as demonic. It's hostile, malevolent, because I don't like it. Where do you think you are? You're in an old farmhouse. People have been born there. People have passed on there. It just looks like it should be a haunted house, and it is. And
to be politically correct here for the etymology of the word demon. The word daemon was basically a spirit that would be an overseer for the gods and watch humans. They would be the kind of like the overwatch humans if they were doing wrong. So in a way, they were a spirit. So
isn't that what Satan used to do?
Yeah.
So his job.
So in some interpretation, it might not necessarily be wrong, but I think there are different characteristics that other people associate with in a larger mass than that minority.
Yes, Satan was basically a celestial truant officer, and then he went through a serious demotion, didn't he?
And he's also Iblis in Islam belief too, so in some form. Yeah.
But Satan has nothing to do with the Conjuring House.
No, definitely not.
maybe not.
There's no portal to hell.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it does or not, man. But I wanted to touch on that because that could or could not be our first encounter with something sinister, I guess you could say. But as you guys just said, I feel the same way you do. I don't feel like it's sinister at all at the Conjuring House. It's more playful, you know. And then so after the Conjuring House, we went to was it Hillview Manor, Stacy?
Yeah. Hillview Manor, that place had I had some mixed feelings coming from that one. There was one point where I felt like water was running down my side, and Bill's like, "Pull your shirt up," and I pulled my shirt up, and I had 2 marks down my side, and it looked like scratch marks, but it didn't feel like a scratch. You know what I mean? Like when it happened to me, it didn't feel like somebody scratched the shit out of me. But when I pulled my shirt up, there was the 2 scratch marks down my side. You
felt some kind of irritation, Stacy, and then you looked and you definitely had marks inflicted on you from it. But it didn't feel like you'd scratched yourself or something like that.
No, I was holding the camera. I was filming Bill doing a session, and I was like, "Wow, there's like water," because he had just said something and ran down his leg.
Wow.
You know, and then I remember just feeling like I don't know, it's like all my skin was just like tingling on the tops of my arms.
Well, it's interesting what you're describing. I was employed at Slater Mills site in Pawtucket, Rhode Island for 14 years. And, officially I still am. I'm just not going into work to justify that employment. I'm not drawing any salary for that. But it was earlier this year. I was directing a tour in the Sylvania. Last autumn, like November. And I was directing a tour in the Sylvanus Brown House on the campus. It was built in 1758. And this lady told me, she was a lawyer, she was an attorney, a pragmatic lady when this new conversation. But she said she felt something running down her leg. It was almost comical at first. I said, no, she's serious. She said she felt something liquid going down the side of her leg. Of course, there was nothing there we could see. And, so that it reminds me of that. That seems to be some kind of spirit manifestation.
Definitely. Something trying to communicate. Maybe not necessarily negative, but something trying to communicate. We always jump to that something of like a physical mark is negative. But what happens if they can't audibly speak to us? Maybe we're not comprehending what they're trying to say to us. So they're going to reach out, maybe communicate to you in that way to prove that they are there. So maybe that was a way of communication. So that's what you experienced. Possibility.
Right on.
Could the feeling of like water be just our perception of being touched by something? Because our bodies aren't used to being touched by something from another place. Maybe that's how we interpret it. You know what I mean?
Not necessarily going to be like icy fingers. It might be just I can reach out. See, like say somebody's caught in a basement, they're walled in, or they fell down in the basement, and they're saying, "Hello, hello," nobody hears them. They're trying to get a message through, like, I'm down, I haven't caught. So finally they find a brick and they throw that through an upper window. And that's what gets through. And they think, why didn't the person just appear? Why didn't they call out for help? Why didn't we see them? Why didn't they stand in the window? Well, they're all different kinds of factors. Yeah, that's what they could do at the time.
Yeah, I think it's also maybe what physically or mentally stimulates you too. Maybe what, people use the word energy in a form sometimes they misunderstand, but, water is in the same capacity.
Well, it's a good conductor.
Just as maybe spirit is as well.
So conducts electricity. It's the life force, and everything depends on liquid. So
definitely.
Gotcha. So after that crazy experience, we were kind of like a little curious about what the hell just happened, and I think at that point Stacy really started to realize that this shit's real. And after that we went to, am I right, Stacy? I don't want to put words in your mouth, man.
Oh no, most definitely, man. Like I didn't have a closed mind. Okay. I've never had a closed mind going into this. I'm hopeful that what we're doing is communicating with the dead. I'm hopeful for that for my own reasons. Okay. but never had anything like that happen. So it was really, you know, I ain't got no reason to lie to you. I could care less whether ghosts are real or not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I say that, but I have my own reasons.
Yeah.
Right. So, it was amazing to me, and I couldn't get through because I remember we sat there and we're talking. I was like, "Is it what we think it is? You know what I mean? Is it maybe something else? I don't know, dude. My mind was spinning when I left that place.
Yeah.
So, like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that amped us up to try to push the limits too. You know, like once you get a taste of a little bit of something, you want to do it again. You know what I'm saying? So, so the next location we went to was Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and looking for the Mothman. I've been there a ton in the past, and I've looked for the Mothman a ton of times. The locals seem to believe it's a demon that may be left over from an encounter with this guy named Chief Cornstalk, and the locals there. That there's a big war there, and so people believe that there's this demonic presence, and so. Stacy and I got the big idea that we were going to start using a bit of magic at this point, and we wanted to use the most powerful magic we could. So we got some Alastair Crowley stuff out, you know.
Why start with a tricycle when you can just get right on a motorbike?
Right. Yeah. So we busted out the Hymn of Pan. Are you guys familiar with that at all?
Very much so. I have it about 1/3 memorized, but that's easy because it's repetitive.
Yeah, definitely.
I used to have it all memorized.
Of course, a famous movie and other off of Pan's Labyrinth is kind of associated with that as well. So loosely,
I could boot it up for you and recite it, but maybe at this time it's probably not a good idea. You know?
Yeah. That's interesting you say that. When we played it, people at home were saying that they were having things happen at the same time. So anyway, yeah, we decided to play this Hymn of Pan. All hell broke loose, man. Can you explain what happened, Stacy?
And that's what's hard to do. You know, I've tried to explain this to everybody I've talked to about it. I don't know. There's something about it. It just when it played, and then we started seeing our equipment all fluctuate at the same time. So like my spirit box was getting interference the same time my meter was lighting up, the same time my REM pod was going off, because I had them, you know, a little area set up, and we were getting some kind of voice. We couldn't quite understand what it was, but it was just this really deep voice coming through. And you know, I'd never seen my stuff do that. It was some kind of interference. It was just going off and like fluctuating. So I got the lyrics off the internet and went into one of them domes and recited it. You know, looking at it, trying to keep the same like cadence that he did. And so the reverberation and everything out of that TNT dome, you know, it was really odd because I thought I heard a voice that wasn't my own. Mm. That was when stuff for me kind of got on the wonky side. We did come out of there. I immediately told Bill what I thought I heard. Okay. And it was just like your conscious, you know, or like your inner voice. Cause like, if I mess up, I'll be like, yeah, you knew that was coming. I'll say that in my head to myself, which I think everybody does. But anyways, this was a different voice. This wasn't mine. And so we came out of there and then we went on to the next spots, but them doors ended up closing on that. When we came back, the doors on that shelter were closed. And now these doors are like 200, 300 pound doors. They're blast doors in case that, because they kept dynamite these things. And if the dynamite was to go off, you know, they had some blast doors on there. So it really seemed to heighten the activity. We started getting stuff happening. And I think we owe a lot of it to that. But then again, I don't know. You know, I don't know that much about magic. Like I said, I'm just I'm on the outside looking in.
Well, you know, one thing I want to, you know, of course, it's all about education in the same aspect, but not to discredit the magic and doing the hymn, of course. But most people tend to forget, if meters are going off near a ghost box, it could also be the EMF radiation from a radio, because it does give off EMF. So it can cause false lights.
Could affect him?
No, I said the EMF meters.
Because
the meters are going off.
Themselves.
Could affect the meters themselves, the readings. So you always got to speculate that, of course. But as far as doing magic is, especially in the Crowleyan belief, the Thelma, and it's intent. It's really intention. That's all magic really is intention. So if your intent is to invite communication to something, then you might get what you want. It's the intent. You're at that point also doing an action. When you do the hymn, you're provoking an action. So that action and that intent might have gotten you what you wanted. You might have gotten, of course, something to communicate back, because it could correlate with you wanting to communicate.
Right. Well, I think it's important to talk about our instruments at that point. You know, I think that you're absolutely right, James. You know, a radio can put off EMF. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that if you know, everybody does, we had them far enough apart where I don't think that was the case.
Consideration, I'm sure, you know.
Oh, just making sure for people, you know. Because, you know, I try.
Well, I mean, mainly it's like these toys that we use. I don't put a lot of stock into them. You know what I mean? Because they're toys for the most part, right?
Well, a lot of the equipment we use is unshielded too.
They can be good for documentation, but they're also were not in the first place designed for this purpose, and you know, paranormal investigation or research. Also, they lack intuition. The human mind has intuition. Sometimes you got to feel it out. You can analyze it later, but right then, I've got a gut feeling this is going to work that might, and then you realize later while you were saying it. Now that hymn to Pan, get that back to that for just a minute. Now Crowley, although he can be lampooned and rightfully so, and he was kind of a madman,
and a drug addict.
Yeah, but he was a genius madman drug addict, and a very talented. I don't know if I should say genius, but you see, he engineered that poem. It's a lengthy poem, and it has, you know, we have the circadian rhythm, being human beings. You know, we go on a pulse, and he has that structure that if you read it and you read it with deliberation, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like drums, man, and boom, 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 boom. And plus the words, what they're actually saying, it's an invocation. And by the time you're done with that, you're like, whoa, whoa. And you do that in the right environment with intent. You know, not just to recite for a classroom. You do it with intent. That's the power. That's a lightning bolt, I think, because it's got that rhythm. Crowley engineered that. He calculated it. He programmed that rhythm into it so that if you read it, because he sounded it out, worked for him. I'm sure it took him some time. He wrote it when he was in Moscow, and it's just so he probably had few distractions at the time. And just if you read that,
sexcapades.
It was always in that. And they say that it could drive people mad. That's what Crowley did. Crowley didn't say, "Oh, this isn't safe. You know, we don't want my acolytes to have a bad experience." Crowley wanted to experiment with people. People were his puppets, his experimenters, and you know, if that drove somebody mad, he said, "Oh, I'm on to something then, because I've opened up a chasm to the dread dimension." You know, like one of his famous rituals invoked Karansan, who was the demon of chaos. Yeah. You know, and he went out to a desert. I think it was in the west of the United States, and he sacrificed a pigeon at each four corners. And he brazenly called that, and storm clouds, when none were predicted, came into the desert, came over them. He was a powerful magician, a chaotic magician, but, you know, not a structured magician, but a very gifted magician.
Well, if you believe in that stuff.
That's only if you believe it. We want to be objective. We don't believe in this stuff or anything like that. No.
But, you know, I don't know if I believe in it or not. You know,
to be honest, I think some of his ideologies were kind of spot on, and you know, he takes a lot from different cultures and a lot of different
ideologies.
Oh, he definitely did, man. He definitely did. He had a whole cult with him. So, you know, look at his background. You know, I just think I think a lot of his stuff is like a diary of a madman.
I don't underestimate.
LSD.
But he was totally chaotic.
You talk about the heroin epidemic nowadays, and you see the people that go through the situations. Can you imagine a guy that's claiming he's a black magician doing rituals, like the things that he could be probably seeing that is all.
Well, I never said he wasn't outrageous,
drugs.
because he was certainly an outrageous character.
I'm just saying though, like you have to take it what is for granted, but it's Nintendo stuff. You ask for what you have, but. Do I think the rituals that he did at places could have created some activity? Yeah, but because if you do something over and over again, the definition of insanity, you definitely maybe create something. So, but he definitely wasn't.
Officially, the definition of insanity is if you perform an experiment, do the same thing, and you expect different results. Well, once you get into quantum physics, of course, that's the norm.
Yeah,
that's the new norm.
All right, so I think we're unanimous. Crowley was a crazy magician, but at the end of the day, he may have been the most talented magician. He was absolutely insane, but there is a slight possibility. I mean, slight, that this guy was legit and he really did do these things. And let's leave it there for just a moment. And so after we left the TNT area, we ended up going to what the hell is it called?
Wildwood Sanitarium.
Yes.
Great place. I've been there.
Yeah. So we rolled into Wildwood Sanitarium, man. We were having a blast at this point. We were like, basically on the downside of this paranormal journey, man. We only got a couple more locations to go. We're having a great time. So we roll in there, man, and we're having a good time. And then all of a sudden we start just doing this little thing in the basement. We're walking around. You can go ahead and tell a story, Stacy.
Okay, so like when I went into this place, this little kid gives me this tour. You know what I mean? I was super excited. It was fun environment, meeting the owners there. Great people. They talked, and then we got ready. I was so excited about it because I had finally gotten into my groove with letting people, or it not being weird for people to be watching me live. You know what I mean? So I was excited about streaming and talking to these people, and I don't know. We got into the basement, and I did a session in the bathtub. Felt fine. Come out of there. I'm filming Bill, and he tells me to turn this light, because I'm seeing dust, and the people are all thinking, it's orbs and things. So it's like, here, you turn the light like this, and when he did, it really aggravated me. Yeah, it got me upset. I was like, okay, kind of taken back by it. It kept on, and then we were right there. This little box. He had found this little box, and he was doing an EVP session, and I was bullshitting with the people online, talking to them, and I hear him say, "You talk too effing much for this," and it picks it up and walks off. So I follow him. And then I just set the camera down and I walk off, right? At that point, when I heard him say that, I was like, nah, dude, you just didn't say that to me and the cameras are rolling. You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with you? So I go up and I sit down and I'm sitting there, and he comes up and he doesn't really remember saying it, right? He's not arguing with me because he can tell I'm upset, but he's he was saying whatever. But we watched the tape of that, okay? He actually never said that.
Okay, this is what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
And I promise you, as I'm sitting here right now, that's what came out of his mouth.
You don't impress me as somebody who's prone to imagining this, who would hallucinate.
Especially than somebody that necessarily didn't really believe in it.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely, you're not gullible, so you're not easily perceivable to think that, that's pretty interesting.
It sounds to me like one of these experiments or your travels, something you did, cracked open a door and something slithered out and stayed.
We go up and we do a spirit box session right before we close down for the evening, and there's a kid's voice says the portal is, or close the portal.
Oh my!
Close the portal. This is on camera. All this was recorded. like I'm still I'm about to this week go through it and like pull the highlights, shit like that out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it says close the portal. And then so we turn off, we go to bed. We didn't really pay that no mind. I am like physically tired. You know what I mean? We've been going, we've drove like 9 hours that day. I'm laying in bed. I'm hearing doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. Something out there running up and down the damn stairs. You can just hear it. It's like it'll take like three steps at once. It sounds like it runs from one little spot to the next, right up and down the stairs. And I'm looking at the ceiling. And I'm so mad, right? I'm thinking, why am I still alive? Why have I not killed myself yet? I don't think negative thoughts a lot of the time. I got enough, stuff going on that I don't need nothing like that. I literally lay in bed and stare at the ceiling for like 6 hours. I get up. It's right at daylight, right as the sun started coming up. I got up, went downstairs, packed everything up, and then I walked outside. I never walked back in that place.
Mm-hmm.
When I walked outside, it was like just a dump of emotions, like everything just like completely drained. Like, I don't know, I started crying for like 45 minutes, no reason why. It was like I had a nervous breakdown. I wasn't scared of the place.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I can't figure out a reason as to why that happened.
Mm.
Well,
it could be, honestly, many possible factors. Of course, you guys were traveling, a little bit exhausted, going to these places that have had experiences by other people. I had an experience at the Wildwood Sanatorium. I understand that in opinion, there is something.
They're notoriously silent, the abandoned.
So,
of course.
But also maybe possibly with that exhaustion. And of course, doing him with that indication. And then also at the same time, touching these items that had like the tub, which was a shock tub. Which I actually laid into as well.
You laid into that tub. I knew what you meant when you said the tub there, yeah.
So down in the basement there's a tub, but touching that and being involved with that, you get all this rush of emotions that could have been imprinted in that place that were very much negative and very distraught and traumatic to people. And that could have been all a key factor of playing something on you and you feeling these thoughts, because I bet the people that stayed there were suicidal maybe. If
I could interject one tiny observation.
Go ahead, Carl.
I think Stacy might have become a spirit box himself in a very broad term.
That too.
Yeah. That he's you became a receiver, Yeah. And something's going to hit a sensitive frequency in you. Yeah. This is not necessarily a bad thing. It's great for experimentation. Mm-hmm. But then again, you stay awake looking at the ceiling for 6 hours. You and I have basically the same sleep patterns, Well, I'm not that bad usually.
Right. But in that same token, doing that stuff, we put ourselves through that process. I do believe in I've seen it. I believe in an accurate standard. I believe in channeling. And sometimes when we invite and we do these things, sometimes we
channeling is an invitation,
allow ourselves to have these things to ring through us and also bleed their emotions into us too. I do believe in those theories. I've encountered things similar.
Channeling is tricky. I mean, it's not overtly sinful and ill-advised. Mediums channel and they don't seem to suffer ill effects from it, but it's a form of temporary willful possession. Mm-hmm. Where do you draw the line?
And in some way, you were inviting that, not in a way that you maybe asked for, please possess me, but you were
right.
The worst I've ever seen is when somebody was channeling, they had trouble dismissing the spirit, like disassociating, because the spirit was so verbose and wanted to communicate to them. How much was psychological? I don't know. They had trouble getting the spirit, but it doesn't. I've never known a medium to suffer apparent ill effects from channeling some past personality, some entity.
Right. So Stacy, has this stuff ended for you, or are you still like experiencing anything?
I mean, I just find more of a want now, a need to like do these things again. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
you know what you're saying.
Watching like shit about Alastair Crowley. I've been watching some stuff about Charlie Manson, although that's probably non-related.
You gotta research Gregorio Rasputin.
Yeah, Gregorio Rasputin. He's an interesting character.
Very
he was
definitely
a part, in touch with
I heal people.
Yeah, man. But it just there's been more of a need now to. I mean, now I got in a car wreck since I got home, so it's like my string of luck since I've been home ain't been good. But now it's just more of an interest, more of a want to go back.
Yeah.
You know, more of a want to do this. Like now, like these rituals, if that's what it was, it may not have been. Like you said, it may have well been exhaustion, but now the curiosity has turned on because it may not have been exhaustion.
I'm going more for what you did,
Yeah.
for what you opened up and received. I'm thinking, yeah, exhaustion plays into it. I get exhausted plenty of times. I don't, I don't receive. I don't change. I might back into a fire hydrant or something, but I don't change that much. And if I'm exhausted or under emotional stress,
Well, some people hallucinate when they're exhausted. So,
well, I will if I go a couple of days without sleep.
Well, I'm not saying that, though. I'm just saying that there's many different factors,
I'm just prone, for all the data he's given us, I'm prone to think that Stacy, that you
definitely dealt with something, yeah.
You did something Crowleyan. You opened it up. I'm not all supernatural or metaphysical, but I think you tapped into something.
I definitely think
that other realm does exist. We don't understand it, but there's something out there.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're a ghost and you concur that they're a ghost, I mean, there's something different, something beyond what we see. And therefore, I think he tapped into something.
Definitely.
Malevolent in the sense of inconvenient for you.
Yeah.
Could take over your mind, could mess with you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily evil and spawn of the devil, but inconvenient for you. Too strong. Not going to be suppressed that easily. Not going to be banished that easily.
Right.
So do you think that I'm going to call them symptoms that he had are those symptoms of being possessed?
Well, in some form of the word, yes, but I think, like I said, maybe a spirit possession or a spirit influence, because I definitely believe with what he invoked, and of course maybe the exhaustion, and of course being involved in a place that I do believe could be haunted, that you open yourself up and you were able to have something come through you, and that gave you some sort of kind of like shock to your system, shock to your reality, and affected you in some way. And of course, I think there'll be echoes from that as well. That's why it's called a haunting, right? So it'll haunt you, but I think maybe it'll lead you to a quest. So yeah, I definitely think you dealt with something.
I got my own take on that. Now, if Stacy had this experience and he was in a hotel room or in his own bedroom, had not been messing with the occult, or wasn't doing it heavily. Not saying you messed up. I'm just saying messing with, working with. And there are a cachet of people who would interpret that as an alien visitation. Space people came into your room. They wanted to abduct you, and with some cause to say that. They would state that. They said, you tell your story to some MUFON people. They say you had a classic alien abduction or an alien visitation. That's classic for that. Now, who's to say they're wrong?
Yeah.
I say it's somewhere in between. I say, yeah, there was an alien presence. It was just kind of non-physical by our standards. In its world, it's physical. We're not.
Yeah. You're spiritual, celestial.
We're not physical in the same way as they are. They have their own physicality. Maybe they're dark matter. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting you say that, Carl, because I'm sure you guys are familiar with Lamb, the guy that came out of this portal when Crowley was doing his thing, and so he was an alien. He was actually an alien, and
that was also drawn from a trip too. So we have to equate how much of it was reality. Because
why do you keep bringing up his drugs?
I have to be the realist to this, because I just know the symptomatics of people with addiction.
Right. So I understand where you're coming from there, James. But when you look at the picture that he drew of Lamb, there's no denying that it looks just like everything we've seen as far as an alien goes. So he drew that thing back in 1922, and everything after 1922 that has been alien-ish looks like what he drew.
I wonder
well,
why.
James was trying to remember the name. He said it begins with L. I said, you're talking about Lamb. That's what you're talking about. When I first was reading a book on magic, and I think it was a biography on Crowley, and I was turning the pages. I said, "Oh, they got a picture of an alien in here." And then I read and saw what that was. That was an apparition that would make return trips. That was kind of his guide to that other realm. Liam would keep coming through. He was like a messenger, cavorted messages. But Yeah, it's interesting to see that because he's got small. The only thing is he doesn't have big bulbous eyes, but he's got a little line for a mouth, little slit for a nose.
Right.
He's got a big gray head.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, Carl. So I know a little bit about your past. I know you've messed around with magic and whatnot in your past.
Let's say it all.
So my question though, Carl, is have you ever done what we did? Have you ever used a spell and had something happen when you used that spell?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, it's chaotic. It's not predictable. I thought the component of magic was that you would, or the purview of magic was that you cast a spell to fulfill your will and get what you want, and it just didn't work that way for me. But I got results. Oh yeah, I don't know a lot of it. You don't know. I threw a curse on someone, and they were deserving of that curse. Well, you say curse, I had destroying agent, a hex. Put it in LaVeyan terms, I threw a curse on somebody and they met with disaster.
Oh, wow.
I thought that might have happened anyway. No, but I've done things like I wanted a certain type of person in my life, and I cast a very strong spell for that. And that person came along, but years later. And it was that just the way I envisioned. Yeah. Another time there was a certain relationship I wanted, and I had a definite subject. This wasn't something vague, like bring Snow White to me. It was like, it was the person I liked. I was enamored of, and I did a very unique, very structured ritual, and I obtained my desire. And we had a relationship for 2 years, and the first year was kind of nice and sweet. Second year we spent destroying each other, but. I didn't plan that to be long term anyway. That was my vision. But there have been things like that have come into my life later. I wanted recognition for my works, my exploring metaphysics,
Right. So, well, if Stacy Brown and I took you to where Alastair Crowley and H.P. Lovecraft were thought to have opened up portals, would you have a spell in your pocket to be able to open up a portal?
I must confess, yes, I would.
Oh, Stacy.
What would
I would experiment. I'm surprised I haven't had my demonology badge pulled, because I'm very experimentative, and I would rather learn and experience something, because I've delved into that. I've had the experience. I've done the impossible. I've had miraculous results. Well, I don't know, miraculous.
Oh, nothing's impossible. Nothing is.
Well, yeah, some things are, like levitating off a cliff. That's, jumping off a cliff, that's theoretically impossible.
Well, somebody floated on water, so.
Well, that's you expand it, and nothing's impossible.
Yeah, nothing's impossible. It says I am possible.
I would be with you guys. I would say I would not be the one. I would not be my brother. In that case, I would not be the one who said, "Now, guys, I have to advise you not to go any further. You've experimented. Let it go." No, I would be. Can I take a turn, because I have an incantation here? I would remember when I was in the Conjuring House last August, and I was with the Ghost Adventures team, and I was saying I want to try something that I should have tried. I wanted to try 46 years ago. I felt the house wants to speak through me. I want the house to speak through me. I should know better. I should be responsible. I should set an example. But I'm not going to learn anything that way if I'm cautious. I want to let the house speak through. I didn't think I'd jump out the window or something. But I'm not setting the best example for other people. But I did. I allowed the house to speak through me. And I really knew the results when I saw what they had filmed, what the crew had filmed. I wasn't sure just what I had said. Then they left me alone in the room for a while after that, and it got very, very, very dark in that room.
Ominous.
Yeah, ominous. Yeah, it was. But I wanted to experiment. I said, do I want to go back home and say, well, I was mature. I said, this is not advisable. This house does have a presence. Or do I want to let it speak through me and see what happens? I was not afeared of being possessed. I had taken a chance, but I was glad I did it. I experimented.
Yeah.
And they had enough psychokinetic activity to corroborate it. I would open something up. Things were happening. We had some objects move. The room got very dark. And temperature changes, and we started boom, 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 boom around the house, like somebody's going around banging, so something was called in. I was glad I did it. So I would, yes, I honestly would.
So I guess let me ask you, because like all that I've read on Alastair Crowley is like he would use drugs with his rituals. Okay, so in all fairness, for not to kick drugs, but like if you did some mushrooms and I did some mushrooms, we're going to have a different trip.
Yeah. Well, that would be logical.
Okay? It's going to be different. I don't give a damn who says what. We're going to experience different things. However,
there's shared hallucination.
If we experience the same thing while doing the ritual in whatever mind altering state, is there any like weight to that? You know what I mean?
Psychologically, there is a effect of cause and effect of shared hallucination. It is possible, even though it doesn't sound possible. It is very much possible, and it actually happens more than you think it does. So, that is a possibility too. But yeah, most of the time they did experience the same things. Like or actually experienced different things. One of the things Crowley used to do is him and his followers actually took LSD and stared at dark paintings for hours on end and would trip out. Not all of them had the same experience, man. And that is very well noted by many of his followers. So
it was an exercise in mind expansion, to be sure.
But yeah, that's some crazy stuff, man. Stared at a dark picture, like of dark-minded stuff, like dismemberments and stuff like that, non-LSD. I could imagine the trip or the thought, the ritual that you're doing, what you're going to experience. I can only imagine, man.
Right.
Timothy Leary in Berkeley, he claimed never to have had a bad experience from his LSD usage. He was a proponent of LSD,
But also, Crowley was also called the wickedest man alive, and he also claimed to be a black magician. That like some of them didn't, some of them just were interested in magic.
Have you ever heard a recording of Crowley's voice?
Oh yeah, it's terrifying.
We open up the chasm.
Yeah, he sounds sketchy.
He was a frightening man, man. He was frightening looking too, especially when he was older.
Dude, he was an entertainer. He was like the first, like what we call Rick Dyer. Like Rick Dyer is known in the Bigfoot world to be like the biggest hoaxer ever. I think that's kind of what Crowley was. But again, I think that he had. I really believe this. You guys know I'm a skeptic, man. And I believe that Crowley had something going on. I believe that this dude probably did some things that he claimed. I'm not sure that he did all that stuff, but man, I believe that Crowley was a very powerful magician. Yeah, I believe that.
Well, he was in a hotel in London one time, and he effected a spell of invisibility, and he said that worked because he stripped off all his clothes, went to this London hotel lobby. He walked around, he's naked, and he said nobody said a word, so I know I was invisible.
Yeah, and they realized it was a hoax, and they kicked him out of the British intelligence. Yeah,
he was that
happened too. They kicked him out.
That's hilarious, man. That's great. All right, so we have about 15 minutes left, but I really want to.
You heard it there.
I really want to get back to the real question, man. Is Stacy Brown possessed? And I think that's really why we're here. Do you guys think that he had a possession of some sort because of the things that we did?
A temporary possession. He's not affected by it. He's not messed up by it, but he is more sensitive to it now. Yeah. That is good and not good. Yeah. Now it would happen to him sooner if he wanted it, if he allowed it. Do I think he's taken over? No. Do I think it's still inside him? No, I don't. But I think it was a temporary possession. Possession is a loaded term, and just means you're surrendering yourself or something is taken over for a while. But this was volitional possession.
Of your will, yeah.
Yeah.
So you allowed it, and I definitely do believe you were influenced and dealt with something.
I think Stacy has the presence of mind, strength of character to not let it absorb him, or direct
for long term,
It was good for experimentation,
So, so next time we experiment, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a next time we experiment. What should we do to maybe increase the results? Does it help if you have a lot of people? Like, for real,
Oh, we just said.
I want to experience.
Oh my
Man, I want to experience it, and if it, I mean, maybe we could protect ourselves better, but maybe we could do something at the same time to heighten the results. What works with that? And I mean, seriously, I don't know nothing about this kind of stuff, so
you're learning pretty fast, though.
I'm trying. I really am.
Well, all I can say on my realm, because I know Carl dabbles more than I do in some practices that I might not necessarily.
I dabble as long as I don't diddle. I'll go.
Yeah. I will say, if you do it, which you will, that just be careful in your intent. You know, draw something out, but also make sure that you don't have anything going on in your life. Just make sure you have a kind of ability to make sure if anything does come on to your home front, that you're able to push it back, because when you play with fire, you're most likely going to get burnt. So that's my only, as you know from your fire pit outside. Yeah, I've gotten burnt plenty of times. Yeah, I played with it, so I would know physically. But no, seriously though, as far as enticing, the one thing that I tell people not to do, and I think that heightens, is provocation, and that's of course your own volition, and that's on your own key of things of doing things.
I would advise just to always be aware of your own sense of self. There's the core of you is in your mind. That won't be relinquished. That's there. You can always go back to that strong place in your mind. The rest is superfluous. The rest is how we interpret our realities. You got 7 billion plus realities crawling around this planet. So just keep that focus of yourself, and you'll be all right. I think it would be a shame not to experiment, not to learn more. Your writings could be as valuable as Crowley's. Perhaps more so in some ways,
Is there anything that you would suggest us to study to be better prepared, or maybe more knowledgeable about the magic that we're screwing around with?
Look at different sources that, because you're going to get differing opinions. One source I liked was, it's not a print, but I think you can order it. It's called Real Magic, but this is the more recent Real Magic title. I should say there was one before it. It was reissued. I'll give you the author, P.E.I. Bonowitz. Philip Emin Isaac Bonowitz. His book Real Magic is a primer, but it's and it gets pretty detailed. That's a very helpful book, And I think approach it with a belief that you can do something, because I certainly know you can, because we're delving into quantum mechanics. Laws distort. Our brains are quantum. I'm sure of it. So, you can tap into something.
Yeah.
And if you're researching Crowley, when you read his, Magic in Theory and Practice, Magic with a K, stay objective about it. Don't take him literally, because he had a bizarre sense of humor. He'll get you nowhere if you take him literally. You can't see Crowley as an instructional. You can't see him as a guru, as a prophet. Alastair Crowley, when he was at the Abbey in Cefalu in Sicily, one of his followers, under his behest, drank cat's blood and died from that. So Crowley is not someone to take literally, but you can learn from him, because he had wonderful moments of transcendental experience, where you just raise yourself up off the mundane and experience the transcendental and the mystical. Yeah, he was valuable in that sense. You just can't. He was a very flawed human being, as are we all in different capacities. So you can't say, "Oh, Crowley says to do this, that." You just got to learn from him, extract what is valuable to you. Don't say you have to do everything he did. You don't have to fast for 14 days. You don't have to climb the side of a mountain to get enlightenment. He was just happened to be good at those things, But Crowley is a good source. Bonowitz, Real Magic, is a primer. I don't think you need books like, like John Zappa's book. What was that? The Darkness and Delight, I think it was. That's a compilation of ghostly encounters. It's a fun and a valuable read in some ways, but you're not going to learn necessarily from it. You're going to hear what somebody else's experiences are. I can recommend my own book, Shadow Realms, Demonology Handbook. But that has its limited value in the sense that it is for somebody, it's designed for somebody who's on a paranormal case or researching demonology and history of demonology. But I do go off-roading with it somewhat. If you read Shadow Realms, you'll get some things, my personal experiences, what went right for me and what went wrong. So those are a few sources. Again, my brother wrote 3 books, and I think they're excellent books, the Paranormal Reality series, but I don't think you would learn anything from them because they're case history, told verbatim. You know, he recounts conversations, but, you know, okay, somebody saw a ghost, somebody experienced something, you know. So don't look for compilations of ghost stories. Look for something that's got theory in it. Well, there's another, I don't recall the author right now, but there's another real magic book that was insightful to me. You know, if I had it in my car, I'd go get it.
And you can also go off to Goetta too, which is a lot of those ideologies came from, especially Crowley was what he loved to Goetta. It was one of his inspirations.
Yeah.
So the Lesser Key of Solomon's on that. And of course, you also remember that at the end of the day, it's willpower. So I believe you can put, I think you can, anytime you put anything to will, it can happen. So if that is your volition to make this happen, I'm pretty sure you guys can. And, you know, reading Core Summon Signs and the Goetta and reading theories on magic.
And just to broadly, all of these are valuable sources, but just to generalize, if it was written longer than 50 years ago, it's probably not of value to you, unless you're trying to extrapolate magic ritual, ritual procedure. Yeah. But if you're looking for theory and what works for some people and what got results, it's pretty useless to look at something that's more than 50 years old. It goes before the 70s. Like Hans Holzler, you'll find his ghost hunting soirees interesting, but it's not a how-to book or a go-to book. You know, read something that's written within the last 20 years. You could probably get some value out of it.
Definitely.
As long as it's not the case histories, saw a ghost. Something that gets into theory. If you see the word quantum in it, or, you know, David Mensch wrote a book, Ghost or Real. A ghost exists. What is it? Ghosts exist in our world, but that's what it is. Ghosts exist in our world. Subtitle, but are they real? Because he gets theory for detecting these things. You know, something that's gonna like get you thinking about it. You know,
right.
Ghost, and be careful that don't say, you know, watch out for the demons, and you know, if it's close the investigation if a malevolent spirit comes in. You don't really want that because it's not going to benefit your unique quest. You know, go for something that has theory in it. Because these are real. These are real forces. We're going into another middle. There's probably a dimension that's very parallel to ours, very close. All we need to do is find a way to step through that. Usually that's done incidentally. People don't mean to pull something into their house. But there's this whole other world. We're planes. You know, we're on flat plates. We're projected. You know, we perceive ourselves as temporal, three-dimensional beings because that's what we understand. That's what we've lived through.
Yeah. See, I'd go a little bit back further, like some Phineas Quimby, who was a famous mentalist from New Hampshire, actually, and had a lot to do with.
This is valuable, yeah.
With some form of maybe Crowley's kind of bylaws and in the way of manipulating people, and of course being a hypnotist and some form of passion, but that, and also New Thought too. You know, the ideas of New Thought of how, you know, positive attracts positive and negative attracts negative. So, if not say be negative in mind, but of course, if you put out that negative, you might receive the negative as well, and hand in hand. So you gotta remember that, you know.
The negative is interpreted too. Yeah. If it causes us a problem, then it's negative. You know what the late Bruce Lee said? Quite the philosopher.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Water is the softest thing on earth, but it can penetrate rock. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That's my Bruce Lee.
Nice.
He said, play seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, like, know what you're doing. Prepare what you're going to do.
Definitely.
You know, play serious. Still play, but you approach it seriously. You approach it in a controlled fashion. Yeah. Now, do you fellows believe that H.P. Lovecraft and Alastair Crowley were really corresponding or may have met in person? It is feasible. I don't believe they did myself.
No, me neither.
I don't.
So I've done a ton of research on this subject. I mean, I honestly researched it for about a year. I was able to find proof that that H.P. Lovecraft's wife did meet Crowley. They were pen pals. They did meet. They definitely met at some point. Whether Crowley and H.P. Lovecraft actually got together and did these things is
doubtful. Yeah.
There's yes, it's doubtful, but it's still possible. And I have not found enough proof to say that they did do these things, but I would love to go on the journey to find out the truth and see if they actually did.
Yeah, I don't think anything, any revelation or anything super productive came out of it. I personally am virtually certain they did not meet. I don't think anything sprung from it. If they did, it's fascinating to think of it. Don't think I don't want to believe that. Of course I do. So if you uncover something,
definitely.
I don't care if they shared coffee or something.
Because that came a lot from Green and that Number Comic Con with the
What's that book?
Number Comic Con. So,
Number Comic Con.
But a lot of that comes from Green. I forget his first name, but Green and the ideas in Number Comic Con. But in reality, H.P. Lovecraft actually compiled a lot of that 6 months prior.
Okay, at least has trouble with that word too.
Yeah, it's hard.
The Necronomicon. But so
Puckwudgie.
Necronomicon.
Probably know two people. Well, I say it.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to keep digging into that. I definitely have my doubts, but I also think it's a possibility. And I think that Crowley pretty much slept with everybody he talked to. And so I'm guessing that they may have had something going on behind the scenes. So
was a notorious, insomniac, so I doubt they slept.
And to be fair with Crowley, after he met his wife Rose, after his addiction problems ended, when he met Rose, he didn't sleep with multiple people. He was actually a civilized human being until he died when he was 72. But a lot of people don't forget about that. Crowley was a decent human being once he met his wife Rose.
I wonder what it was about her that changed him.
She stopped him from the addiction, and she was the biggest fan of him. She noted that, so maybe she respected enough that she seen him falling apart, and that was enough. True love, man. True love it happens.
It does. I can attest to that.
I'm still waiting.
It's in that other dimension.
Right.
Oh, no, sorry, my God. It was Deidre. Rose was when he went to Horus with Deidre. Deidre was the wife.
Deidre's the positive effect,
yeah,
right?
Deidre was the actual wife that he stopped addiction and had a good life with and died. Sorry, Rose he went to Egypt and they supposedly spoke to Horus. Horus would speak through her. Sorry, I made a mistake, guys. But yeah.
No worries. But yeah, that's a crazy story too. That's definitely.
I cannot forget the name Deidre.
I never dated a Deidre.
All right, so we're almost out of time here, but I want to go back and just recap. So Stacy Brown is possessed.
He was.
That's one of our cogent points in this discussion.
He was.
Yep. So Stacy Brown, he may have been possessed, but he doesn't have anything to worry about now. I think that that's the biggest thing for me and probably Stacy too. Is there anything that he needs to do to continue to protect himself? I think that's an important thing to talk about before we get off here.
Build up his own armor. There's that intrinsically. There's that core that makes you Stacy. Don't let that be violated. That can't be touched. That's what's gotten me through some very trying times and like severe panic attacks, life-threatening situations, times where I thought my life is over, relationships end. But there's that me inside. And when I was in a legitimate case of two cases of demonic possession and felt it starting to come into me, there's me inside. I'm not going to let that be violated. It's going to be there, whatever. I'm not worried about that being taken over. That's my secret strong place.
Yeah, I think a key component too is where we tend to forget that regardless, and this, you don't have to believe in God necessarily. It's not to force that onto you, but faith, regardless, faith is a very powerful thing. So you can have faith in that everything is going to be all right, and that is a key component as well. It's powerful because you have something to lean back on yourself and the faith in yourself as well, and the faith of people around you, and of course. If you have faith in a higher power, that's also very powerful as well.
Having said that, we had more time to talk about the Crowley and Alastair Crowley and Lovecraft, because I can elucidate some on their connection there and how they were influenced by one central writer whose fiction begat theirs. You got just basically Ambrose G. Bierce, the author of the Devil's Dictionary and an inhabitant of Carcosa. A lot of that's in that story, and it's a short story, Inhabitant of Carcosa. Then you see he's influenced Robert W. Chambers, the King in Yellow. Robert W. Chambers has at the same time, influenced Alastair Crowley's magic works and H.P. Lovecraft's fiction. So there you have a connection there.
That's interesting. Stacy, do you have any questions before we get off here?
No, man. That's I just really wanted to know. I mean, basically, it was like how we could go about making it work. if we did dabble.
You have the courage and the interest, the curiosity, the drive to go back and try these things.
But the curiosity kills the cat. That's what I'm worried about.
And
just don't drink its blood because that'll kill you.
And you know what, too? If you want, I won't give myself up, but Carl and I would love to join you on that. Let's push the envelope.
You said it.
I'll hold y'all to that. Don't say that because I'll hold you to it.
And who is better there to understand if something's bad's going to happen and be there for you guys?
Well, if you inspire me, I will listen to recordings of Alastair Crowley's voice before. Nice. I will inspire me.
Well, that sounds like a plan, guys. I think we're gonna definitely get together and see if we can do something we probably shouldn't do. but yeah, thanks, Carl. Thanks, James.
I keep this going for another hour. This has been good. We got to do this again.
Yeah, definitely, man. We need a part 2. But thanks, Carl. Thanks, James, for hanging out and helping out Stacy Brown. And thank you, Stacy, for hanging out again, man.
The title of that book that fictional work is Necronomicon.
What was yours?
Necronomicon.
And the book Nomicon.
Hey, Carl, what was your book? What was your book called?
My book is Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook. I wish I got it in my car. Otherwise,
on Amazon?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon.com, or you can get it through me, an autographed copy. Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook, 300 pages.
Yeah. Nice. And how can people find you, James?
JamesAnnitto.com, JamesAnnitto.com, or I'm crazy. I give my number out, 401-808-7416. Contact me if you have an issue. Please reach out. Be respectful.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can just Google Stacy Brown. He's everywhere. But
he'll tell you how to find us.
Right, exactly.
Elise Carlson is she is the one who ties this together. She's the manager of Duo Demonology and my partner in Panorama Paranormal. Elise Gianmarco Carlson, she will. We have a page. We have pages on Facebook. Yeah. Duo Demonology, spelled DAEMNOL. OGI.
King James.
Yeah, I guess King James would have. And the Panorama, multiple interests, multiple explorations. Panorama Paranormal. You find these both on Facebook. And my book, Demonology Handbook, Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, we are out of here. We're definitely going to have a part 2 because I have a lot more questions now that I want to have answered. So you guys have a good night, and until next time, man.
Bring us up next week.
Yes, sir.
Go.
Later.